Hello everybody, Zachary5149 here, and welcome to another annual Pixel Party video. And today's video, similar to last time, will be covering the biggest tournament of the year, Pixel Party Champs, both in normal mode and hyper. As some of you may recall, last year I slugged my way through a vicious 11 hyper champs matches, going a respectable 9-2 and winning the championship for 2024. I was on top of the world, the undisputed #1 hyper player in the world, but I knew that if I wanted to repeat as champion, it would be anything but simple. I wasn't slacking around the year I won it, but I did know that the overall ceiling of hyper mode still had some holes that needed filling, the most glaring of which was rolling colors and the largely untapped mystery of all the best spots, a vital missing piece to the overall puzzle. Luckily, Raywad had made his own server with rolling maps included, which allowed me to learn the best spots along with what I was comfortable with. I also continued to do my best, learning from any mistakes I make. After all, that is what won me the championship. Beyond that, 2025 was all about locking a playoff spot and the seeding that goes with it. In 2024, the seeding was based off a set list of qualification methods, and if you qualified multiple times, you could skip people rated higher than you and take their seed. This year was a lot of that, but with a twist. The qualification methods were mostly the same, with some minor tweaks, but the seeding would be based on tournament performances. Specifically, your 5 best major tournament placements, Addison server only, and 2 minors, large weeklies, top 3 tournaments, and large tournaments hosted on other servers. Specific tournaments also came with multipliers, with tournaments like Champs having twice the weight of standard majors, and considering that I won one of the Champs tournaments, I instantly became one of the only 2 people on the planet that could score the maximum possible points for the year. I started off the year as the #1 ranked player because of my early dominance, thanks to my Champs victory, a 2nd place January 1v1 finish, a Hyper Duos 1st place victory, and Uni's Last Man Standing Hyper Mode 1st place victory pushed my score so high that it would take multiple months before anyone even got kind of close to passing me. And indeed, there were contenders. Several people throughout the year posed significant threats to my rank #1. Pretty much everyone that got a high seed in the tournament by the end of the year at some point genuinely contended for the #1 seed, but were ultimately never able to pass me. In fact, it was possible that the gap could have been even wider if it were not for mid-year champs, a new tournament Addison introduced to level the playing field, whether it was intended to give people another chance to catch up to my spot, or just because it was a good idea for a tournament. It definitely did the trick because 2 of my biggest threats for the #1 seed emerged from that tournament and rode the momentum from that tournament all the way to December. In fact, at one point, Raywad, the undeniably #1 threat, straight up told me that the only reason he was playing Pixel Party was to see me dethroned for the #1 spot. But as we all know, neither of them were able to catch up to me. Owen because he had to prepare for college abroad, and Raywad because he doesn't know how to stay out of trouble. And so, I finished the year as the #1 seed, while also having never once dropped from that spot. Quite the accomplishment, if you think about it. And quite predictably, I qualified multiple times, both through normal and hyper champs. I actually had a pretty dominant year. I can't remember off the top of my head how many tournaments I won in the year of 2025, but it was definitely not even close. Way more than the year before. And that left us with champs. Only this time, I would be going in as the #1 seed, which hypothetically, theoretically, meant that I would have the easiest mean strength of schedule on my way through the championship tournament. I would get a bye from round 1, a best of 5 single elimination composing of seeds 9 through 24, and then begin my championship run in the group stage where me and 3 other players would play each other in a 1v1 best of 3 match, and the top 2 advancing to round 3 of the final bracket. As per usual, the winner of each group in the group stage will go to the winner's bracket, and the runner-up will go to the loser's bracket. So obviously winning your group is the single most effective way to push your way deep into the heart of a championship run, and being the #1 seed, that theoretically means that I have the best chance of winning my group, which unfortunately for me, as I predicted, would never be so simple. In hyper mode, I can complain, but I can't complain too much, as I drew Addison, Uni, and Bacon, which, yeah, that's a tough group, but not a completely undoable one. In normal mode, though, Sander, Uni, and Addison. Brother, you had 2 of my top 6 all-time players in the same group as me, as well as an RNG god that would sell any given opening. I could genuinely lose all 3 of these matches, and it would be totally reasonable, and as expected, unfortunately, I ended up sweeping the entire group 3-0. An unfortunate loss, but not an unexpected... Wait a minute. What? Yeah, believe it or not, I ended up winning all 3 of the matches in my group, including 2 flushes against Sander and Addison. Which, yes, this does also mean that I finished the year in normal mode in the top 5, and will get the winner's bracket advantage in the final bracket. The opinions on Group A and how much of a challenge it is depends on who you ask. If you ask me, I say that my group was some of the hardest groups in the entire tournament. If you ask others, they would tell you it was the absolute easiest group. Me, I can understand both perspectives, but you gotta give me a break. Even if it turned out to be more like what others thought, I didn't know that at the time. I saw Group A with Addison, Uni, and Sander and started digging my own grave. But anyways, I had 3 weeks to get through all 6 of my matches, and I had a strategy or two to do it. First, momentum. Remember in the AFC Championship game when Sean Payton made the negative 500 IQ play of going for it on 4th down instead of taking the points up 7? If you go up 2 scores, anxiety starts to build up in your opponent and keeps your momentum going. Instead, your opponent stays within striking distance of the game and ultimately beats you. That momentum. My goal was to try and establish momentum and then ride that momentum for as long as possible. The group stage format for this year had tiebreaker matches depending on your own match wins, meaning if you have 2 match wins, you are guaranteed to either make the final bracket flat out or have a tiebreaker match instead of elimination, meaning if I could just get 2 match wins, it would be likely for me to make the final bracket. This means taking down the easy opponents early and saving your toughest matches for last. Granted, that's not exactly viable, considering everyone in the group stage is pretty tough, but to my credit, I did start off 2-0 in my group stage matches, defeating Bacon and Hyper 2-1 and Addison in normal 2-0. Bacon and Hyper has come a long way from last year. In fact, he took all 3 of his opponents this year to sudden death. He could just as easily have made the final bracket as he could have missed it. He's a sharpshooter with power-ups, which, as some of you may know, is my bread and butter to shut down my enemies, but there is a select few that can match that energy. Bacon is close, but unfortunately for him, not quite there yet, and I was able to steal some safety items out of his hand. But even then, it was extremely close. I died on my end because I hit my head with a feather, but the main reason Bacon died was because he couldn't get out of his own way. Self-inflicted injuries, that kind of thing. And so, I barely survive against him. Against Addison, I somehow swept him. My first victory was when a power-up spawned on a small RNG-capable map, and of course, he sold for outside. The power-up interfered with his spot, even though the same spot was available to him in 7 other parts of the map, one within spitting distance even, and looking at where he was at the time the color got picked, he would have needed to do a next to impossible jump, and even then, it might have been further, so good luck there. He ended up conceding the point, and then he died selling for RNG on Cross 1.0 outside, whereas I did the hard inside spot and made it, resulting in a 2-0 sweep. All in all, my first hyper match could have gone better, but a win is a win, and in groups as small as these, you really cannot complain. I already mentioned my first strategy on how I was going to attack my matches, but I actually have one more tactic as well. pacing. If I played all of my matches right away, yes, there would be a chance that I could be on fire that day and dominate every match that I played, but just as easily, there could be a day where I am not at 100%, and if I landed on one of those days, it's entirely possible that champs would just die on that day because I scheduled all my matches at once. With a deadline of 3 weeks, I decided to play 2 matches every week and 1 mode each week too. The schedule I planned on was Addison in normal and Bacon in hyper for week 1, Uni in normal and hyper for week 2, and Addison in hyper and Sander in normal for week 3. It mostly worked out that way with a few small deviations. I ended up playing Addison in hyper in week 2 and Uni in hyper in week 3, but I would probably argue that the most important week, week 1, I went undefeated. And because I went undefeated in week 1, that took some of the pressure off, as my next 4 matches I only had to split. It wasn't quite as simple as that because technically 2 match wins doesn't automatically guarantee a playoff spot, but at the very least guarantees another match, so that was the goal going in. Furthermore, while normal Group A was looking initially extremely unwinnable, I figured that if Addison was able to use his unique skills to defeat either Uni or Sander, that might cause just enough chaos for me to get a second match win. And so, going into week 2, I was hot, rested, and ready to play some Pixel Party. Of course, it wasn't going to be easy. Uni at that point was 0-1 in her normal matches, which basically meant that a loss against me would mean the end of her championship run, and I was also going against Addison and Hyper, who was quite possibly my worst matchup of all time. I wanted to save Addison for round 3 in Hyper because I knew it wasn't going to go well. But unfortunately, scheduling forced my hand, and while I fought ferociously, it ultimately was not enough, and I ended up falling to Addison 1-2. One of my deaths I really couldn't do much about because of RNG, but one of my other deaths was absolutely preventable because Addison threw an egg on my feet on a rolling map, and it spelled my demise. This unfortunately also made it so that Addison auto-qualified for the final bracket. Everyone in my hyper group won a match, which means whoever finishes that group with only 1 match win is eliminated, meaning my week 3 match against Uni was do or die, and only one of us would make it to the next round. I was pretty sad, knowing that only one of us would get to go. Would have just been so much more fun if she was in the final bracket with me, but sadly, it was not meant to be. It was around this time that I also learned that Kai, mostly caught up with school, was unable to compete in his sudden death matches, eliminating last year's grand finalist much earlier than expected. And all it would take is a single loss in my final hyper match in the group stage to join him. But that'll have to wait because now we gotta talk about our other week 2 match, Uni. Normal mode, obviously. This match is somewhat controversial, but not in the way you might think, because this match was actually played over the course of 2 days. The first day of competition, I had a hot hand, and I felt unstoppable. I felt like I wasn't going to drop a single point in 100 games. Only problem is, well, it didn't go 100 games, it went 8, and then Uni had to leave. Day 1 of competition ended in a 0-0 draw, but there were opportunities, including a restart that wiped a point off for me. And when I came back on day 2, I failed on a really simple jump and went down 0-1. This is where the controversy came in. The very next game, I immediately sold for RNG and got it. My justification was that I needed to cancel her momentum because it really felt like it was only going to be a matter of time before I lost. And now, with the score being 1-1, I was in a very intense situation where if I could just score one more point, I could make the final bracket of normal mode, something I didn't even manage last year. And so, I made the decision to sell again. Uni made 0 mistakes in the entire match, and to this point in the tournament has given up 0 skill-based points, and surrendered another. 2-1 me, Uni eliminated from normal champs. a gut punch. Sander told me while the match was going if I really wanted to win this way, and at the time I said yes, absolutely, because I just really wanted to go to the final bracket again, but looking back on that, I mostly regret it, because Uni deserves better. All of her losses to that point have been complete RNG, and with her level of talent, she deserves better. So Uni, if you do end up seeing this video someday, I want to formally apologize to you. I did, as a result of this match, make an addendum on how I sold for RNG. I need to score at least one legitimate point against my opponent before I was allowed to sell. If this means that a really strong opponent wins 3-0, I would rather have that outcome than win solely because I got lucky. There's a saying out there that you can either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And I was closer to being a villain than ever before. Now, I'm not out here saying that I'm a hero or anything, but I decided on a more chaotic neutral approach to any future highly intense underdog matches. I would only sell if I could score a point fairly. Unfortunately, soon thereafter, Sander defeated Addison and Uni, eliminating her from normal champs once and for all. So, going into the third week, I had secured a normal championship playoff spot, with the placement in the final bracket to be determined against Sander. And in Hyper Champs, my win or go home match against Uni would decide if I go to the final bracket, as well as if I have a rematch with Addison to determine the winner bracket player and loser bracket player. First was the match with Sander. Now, I was a pretty large underdog in this match, but I figured, hey, worst case scenario, I'm still a lock for the final bracket, and no matter what, I didn't manage to do this last year, so hey, improvements. Even though I was a heavy underdog, I was going to play the game fair and straight. The day of the match came, and it was a battle for the centuries as I swiftly defeated him 2-0 in 2 games. A true sweep.
Sander
No! It's gonna.
God, man!
What happened?
Wow, unbelievable! What a
No!
It was a good match.
Let's go! Let's
I'm
go!
happy that one of Zagon's team is already guaranteed top 3 in normal.
Let's go!
Yes!
Yeah! And so I managed to exceed my high watermark of 3rd place, and instead won the damn group. So, some might argue the conditions of how the group was won, but a victory is a victory, and it's not like it wasn't deserved. Because, like it or not, I was the number 1 seed going into the group stage. The group looked impossible, but I overcame the odds. Quite the story. But now, that left us with one more match in the group stage. Me versus Uni in hyper mode. The winner can still contend for the winner's bracket in the final stage. The loser is eliminated and sent home. And unfortunately, the match was over before it began. Uni had ran out of gas, unable to keep up with her increasingly busy schedule, and sadly fell swiftly 2-0, eliminating her from the final bracket and sending me to a rematch versus Addison. I myself in the rematch didn't play perfectly, including a few fails that could have come back to haunt me, but I caught a few breaks during the rematch because whenever I lost, Addison did too, and there was nobody alive that could cause a death order win. Addison once again showed his cleverness and even got a jump boost victory while falling to his death, and damn near got another win without it, but overall things fell my way a lot better this time, and while my performance wasn't perfect as to be expected playing at 1 AM my time, I ultimately won 2-0, securing my spot in the final bracket through winner's side. I was the only person to qualify for winners with a loss to my name. All 7 other members swept their groups, and so the final brackets for each mode were finalized. In normal mode, you had me, Ku, Maple, and Owen on winner's side, and Kevin, Sander, Fwill, and Whip Poppin losers. Some notable players that didn't make it to top 8 are Stygian, Addison, Uni, Kai, Hacking, and Raywad, the last of whom forfeited the entire tournament. And after saying all of those names out loud, it really goes to show how stacked this group was. Addison and Hacking, by the way, finished 3rd and 2nd the previous year. None of the top 3 from last year even made the final bracket this time. And in Hyper, you had me, Hacking, Stygian, and Owen in winner's side, along with Ku, Addison, Fwill, and Maple through losers. The noteworthy names excluded here are Uni, Raywad, Kevin, and most importantly, the 2nd place finisher from last year, Carely. Yup, he did not make the final bracket this year. 2 out of the 3 placements from last year did not make the final bracket this year. My first opponent ended up being Ku in normal, who advanced from Group C, which had Raywad, Kevin, and Hacking. All players ranked higher in my all-time rankings, including himself. Needless to say, despite a Raywad forfeit, this truly is an amazing accomplishment. Group C was far and away the hardest group in both normal and hyper. The match began, and I was doing pretty solid until Game 5 when I didn't even turn for the jump. I think I was just so nervous that I lifted my mouse into the air as I was turning and ended up losing a point there. Down 0-1, but also about what I expected so far. I could have sold for RNG, but I didn't want to. Not yet. I wanted to score legitimately before I tried that, to prove that I belonged. And indeed, I would get that chance. 9 games later, Ku failed on God knows what this map is called. Apparently he doesn't go for this spot usually, and instead goes for way harder jumps instead. Nevertheless, I score and tie things up at 1-1. From here, something seemed to change within Ku. I won't know for sure unless I ask, and there may very well have been nothing wrong with him to begin with, but I could have sworn he was infectiously nervous. I was in a group chat with him and was talking about how nervous I was. Maybe that got to him, because the moment it got 1-1, the mentality completely shifted. Before, I didn't know if I could do it. Now, all I could think of was, let's do it. On top of that, the restraints were off. I started selling, which may have also gotten into his head, and not too long after, oh my god! Oh my god! Yes! Yes! Oh my god! Let's go! Let's go! Yes! Yes! Oh my god! Oh. I had just secured a spot in winners finals of the biggest normal tournament of the year, finishing as low as the 3rd best normal mode player in 2025. But of course, this was only one of the 2 tournaments where I had this opportunity. The other one was generally considered to be the mode I had better odds for. Unfortunately for me, the opponent I would be facing was the odds-on favorite to win the grand finals. RU Hacking, who did not make the final bracket in normal mode. And yes, he is the favorite. The predictions have Hacking winning 4 times, me 3, along with Owen and Ku twice. How Owen is only on there twice, I will never understand. I mean, yeah, I didn't have him winning. I thought Hacking would, but I at least put him at 2nd. Currently, it's looking like he won't even get 4th. Anyways, Hacking was one of the people on my do not go against them under any circumstances list, with the others for Hyper being Owen and Addison, who I've already faced twice. Basically, this is a match I really did not want to play. But then again, pretty much everyone in the final bracket for Hyper was like that. I should also mention that the last time I played in the winners bracket in Hyper, well, let's just say it did not go very well. I don't think it went well for me or Hacking. But really, if you think about it, all that really means is that at least it can't be any worse this time, right? Right? One of the most important things that I think you can do in hyper mode is start hot. If you can get a safety net in game 1, I think that's a really good omen. Thankfully, I did exactly that. Unfortunately, so did my opponent, and it would largely continue on this way for 3 more hours. Hacking made some mistakes that could have costed him his life, like going for power-ups he probably shouldn't have, along with just basic hyper mistakes, few and in between as they were, which resulted in a handful of almost points for me, none that actually fell through. Ultimately, Hacking postponed the match, and it was tied 1-1 after 22 games on a non-rotation day. I scored first because Hacking collected a teleport power-up and used his only safety net to save himself, ultimately dying not too long after when I used mine. My death was when I knew Hacking had a safety net or two. It was getting late in the game and I still had nothing, so I got more risky, also got a teleport and couldn't react fast enough, dying that very same round. I'll keep it real, Hacking was heating up late in that match, and I am convinced that if the match kept going, I was probably going to lose, so even though I really wanted to end the match right there, a postpone was probably the best thing that could have happened to me. Analyzing the match during the intermission, I really couldn't have done anything different. I was playing some of the best hyper mode I have ever played. But Hacking had the firepower to go blow for blow with me for 3 hours straight. There was, however, one thing I could do to break the standstill: pre-jumping. A risky maneuver since there are no lag restarts in hyper mode. Pre-jumping is the art of jumping off of safety and timing it in such a way that as the floor resets, the void you are about to fall into is replaced by the next map the game picks out. This allows you to have a positional advantage over your opponent in a mode where randomly spawning power-ups are legal, creates a sizable advantage over your opponent, and that can be well worth the risk. Hacking is doing this because he is aware of my power-up capabilities. I, however, don't pre-jump because of the risk it creates. Unfortunately, because of this, Hacking has been collecting more power-ups than me, making it that much harder to deliver a fatal blow to him. As such, for round 2, I fought fire with fire, pre-jumping as well. I actually mostly didn't do that because it was a Saturday, and Pixel Party famously lags a lot harder on Saturdays, but in the end, it didn't matter, because in game 1 of round 2, Hacking fell, and I won the set 2-1, advancing to winners finals. And get this, he died because of, who could have predicted it, rolling floors. It was a 100% doable jump, but he got confused because half of the floor goes one direction and the other half goes the other, but if you sandwich yourself in between the two different directions, it becomes a bit harder to keep track of where you need to go, which ultimately got Hacking, but left me completely immune because I paid attention to only a single direction, making it much easier for me to complete the jump. And so, Hacking falls down to losers, an agonizing way to end the match. We congratulated each other after. It was a hell of a match, and it took everything I had to beat him. In all likelihood, it was not going to be the last time we faced each other in this tournament. He has that potential within him. And so, we were in winners fucking finals in both normal and hyper, my opponents of which were Maple in normal and Stygian in hyper. Stygian was a surprise to me because of Owen, but sadly he ended up forfeiting due to scheduling complications. I figured this might be a fun side-by-side comparison, but Stygian faced Koi, Gabby, and Maple to make winners finals. Meanwhile, I faced Bacon, Uni, Hacking, and Addison twice. Yeah, I wasn't necessarily thrilled. Maple would be my first opponent, and he would be my second match with the newly employed skill criteria before I was allowed to sell. And while I was definitely the underdog in this match, I would actually argue that it wasn't impossible. Maple and I have a fierce rivalry, which actually is bent slightly in my favor, so if I could just bring my best game, maybe, just maybe, I could make it to my first ever. I won 2-0 in 5 games. Alright boys, pack it up, we're done here. Clever callback to my first champs video, but yeah, Maple failed intersect 1 second hard, which opened up my cell card on 1.5 stripes, and it picked hard outside, which only I was ready for, and I made it to defeat Maple 2-0. For the first time ever, I was going to the normal grand finals. I now had just as many grand finals appearances as anyone in the history of the server, and I would have 2 chances to make history, becoming one of 2 men to win both modes. But even better, I now had an even bigger opportunity. The opportunity to go to more grand finals matches in champs than anyone ever. And so, 4 days after my winners finals match with Maple, I had my winners finals match with Stygian. We didn't have many opportunities to play our match, so we played it on a not so optimal day via non-rotation. Neither of us were feeling 100%. I struggled to sleep the night prior, and Stygian had exams. The match was fairly balanced throughout. I expected as much, because again, I was facing someone who can pre-jump and snipe power-ups very well, but I was particularly hot that day. I was able to replicate my incredible performance versus hacking as I quickly picked up a 1-second circle blizzard victory over Stygian. I had speed 3, and someone used an acid rain, which I believe distracted Stygian enough to miss his jump and fall to his death. And just like that, I was only 1 point away from my second grand finals in Hyper. Could I do it? Only one way to find out. Okay, not letting him grab that. You got another feather. Do not be afraid. Using it. I'm not even gonna waste. I'm not even gonna worry about that. Oh, okay, we're good. Ah! Yes! Oh my god! And so, I made the grand finals of each mode through winner's side, and I had a reasonable amount of time to figure out how I wanted to play this extremely abnormal deck of cards. Which mode do I do first? Do I do both on the same day? Do I play on a work day? Which strategies should I use in the match itself? I started by reserving a vacation at the beginning of April, which would provide me 168 uninterrupted hours to play and cope with the result of each grand finals match. The hyper mode strategy is the same as I always have. Work on pre-jumping, don't beat yourself, follow your opponent and steal their stuff, sabotaging where possible, and focus on yourself late, win. Normal mode, however, was not nearly as simple because it is much more arguable that I am a heavy underdog regardless of who I meet in grand finals. It could be at this point Fwill, number 2 all time, Ku, number 12 all time, Maple, number 8 all time, and then you have me all the way down at number 15. I had a lengthy conversation with Sander about the coming battle, and he basically told me that a couple of people deep in the Pixel Party community have all said the same thing. The best way for me to win champs, the method that gives me the best odds, is to sell, sell, sell. Sell every chance you get. Best case scenario, you have a 50% chance of winning. Any other method would probably generate weaker odds. And I sat on this for quite a while. I also want to make clear that while this does sound belittling that people think selling gives me better odds of victory than skill, I don't necessarily disagree or think of it as belittling because those same players also agree that they are genuinely impressed with how well I've done to get here. But the sun was getting real low. I've had a lot of breaks to get this far. The clock's gonna strike midnight sooner or later. I've had the rare luxury of bringing my best to almost every match I've had so far. Anything less, and I may already be eliminated. I also had the luck of dodging certain matchups like a Hungry Sander, Kevin, or Fwill, players that historically do very well against me. The fact does still remain, however, that I have already beaten everybody once. The problem is that I have to do it again if I want to win. So, would selling really be all that bad if you already beat everyone? I ultimately concluded that no, luck alone cannot be the only factor. I still wanted to win off my own merit to show that I belonged. If the championship tournament was to retain any of its true value if I win, and that is an enormous if by the way, it had to be skill. I would definitely still sell, But I also told myself that I had to get at least one skill point before I won. But I also knew I had to change things up. Against Maple and Ku, I set the precedent that I would only sell after I scored a skill point, but I could not afford to wait for those opportunities to come to me. I had to go to them, actively, which throughout my entire life really is something I notoriously never do. It got me this far, but I doubted that it would get me all the way. And plus, with my opponent seeing me sell before I score a point, they'll be more on edge, something I can use to my advantage. If I lose a point to RNG, hell, even 2, it didn't matter. I had to show that I was unfazed and undeterred. If this meant losing 0 to 3 because I sold 3 times and lost 3 times, so be it. Unfortunately, a few days later, I discovered my vacation request was declined, meaning I had to play my matches on a regular work week. On the bright side, the 2 days I had off each week were rotation days, which should help with queues and getting my matches finished. My opponents for the grand finals were released, and it was Fwill for normal and Hacking for hyper. Each player with quite a story to tell by getting here. Hacking now has 2 champ appearances, Fwill has 3, tied for most all time, and he also has a chance to win more champs than the legendary Dopa, also with 2. Starting with Fwill, he went a grueling 1-3 against Owen in champs, getting sent to losers, but then clawing his way through 3 grueling sudden death matches on his way to grand finals. There was a controversial moment in the 4th place match against Ku, which almost caused him to forfeit the tournament, but instead, here he stands, the representative of the losers bracket, and it couldn't be a more unideal matchup for me. Nonetheless, I'm glad he made it here, and now all that was left was to see if he could make some history. Then you have Hacking. This man has been largely untouchable, with only one person in the entire tournament besides me even scoring a single point against the guy, going 12-1 overall. He was favored to win Hyper Champs, and he had a difficult run to get here. Realistically, this is the worst matchup for me because of his death order advantage, but it's not an impossible match either, given I've beaten him once already. Hacking also has something going for him that you need in this match: motivation for revenge. Hacking has lost more times to me in the last 2 Hyper Champ tournaments than anyone else combined. He is hungry to get even. He has crushed everyone and is looking to do the same for me. It'll be a hell of a match, and no mistake. We'll start off with the grand finals I didn't care about as much, which was the normal champs match against Fwill, who, although he lost to Owen in the group stage, fought through 3 straight matches where he went down 0-1, elimination on the line, but fought his way through it to advance all the way to the grand finals. If he wins, this would grant him his 3rd normal championship and Pixel Party's first ever Dynasty player. Truly, I cannot think of a more worthy player to earn this achievement than Fwill. The grand finals was looking to be the toughest game I've ever played, but with my new strategy, hopefully I can make my eventual but unlikely win a little bit easier. So let's see how the first set went. Okay, so not very good. Unfortunately, I was not very well rested for this match. I think I woke up 5 times while trying to catch some Z's the previous night. I probably realistically only got 5 actual hours of sleep, and the other 3+ hours I tried and failed just demoralized me further. My first loss came on the 8 color squares map where I tried to go for a different set of odds. Remember, in this match, I did not wait for a skill win before selling, and I met my demise. Nothing different I could have done, but I absolutely could have done something different here. Honestly, I'm ashamed. I make this jump all the time, but this is the time that I fail it. And my 3rd loss came on squares 0.5. I tried juking Fwill out and go to middle. He goes for the 6.5 spot. The game picks a color each of us can make, but I can't pull it off. The main reason I lost here was because I was so focused on trying to separate from Fwill that when I finally got away, I didn't lock in on my spot or the colors I can reach. The sweep consisted of 2 skill losses and 1 luck one, and Fwill couldn't have looked better. After a short intermission watching an anime motivational video from Kuroko's Basket, the second set began, and I immediately lost a point to RNG again on that damn squares map. I'm telling you, man, 4 out of my 5 Grand Finals losses were either from squares or the 8-color squares map. I tried to sell for outside and once again got nothing. Now Fwill just has to score 2 more points and he wins the Grand Finals. I chose not to deviate from the plan, and a bit later, Brick 0.5 comes up. We each sell and go further from the selected color. I make a tough jump, but Fwill, surprise, surprise, fails the jump. And because he could have made it, I just got my win condition. What started off as an RNG point turned into a skill one. I couldn't believe it. I finally broke through the Shield of Aegis. Sorry, I meant the Shield of Fwill. Love that anime. God. So now, if I wanted to, I can sell all I want and end the tournament, win or otherwise. I go for it again on my new op map, the Evil Spawn of Satan, and I lose again to RNG. There was some controversy that came with this point, though, because there was some heavy lag that Addison wanted cancelled, but with both me and Fwill agreeing it still should have counted and the referee team agreeing, I surrendered my 5th point, going down 1-2. 1 more point, and Fwill wins the Grand Finals. The match got delayed to the following day, both because of the controversy and Addison had to go. Stripe 0.5 comes up, Fwill contains my outside, but because I had a small amount of room on the inside, I decide to sell for that, which I get, and Fwill doesn't, resulting in an RNG loss for him, which actually, after the tournament ended, was revealed to have been a skill loss. Fwill barely was able to make that jump, which, yes, just because he wasn't set does not mean it wasn't a skill loss. I even recreated a harder version of the jump he was required to make and got it. And now the score was tied up at 2-2. The next point would win the Grand Finals. Before we see what happens next, I figured it might be a good idea to add some context for this moment. Up to this point, me and Fwill had 2 skill-based mistakes, but Fwill was undefeated 3-0 on pure RNG. Selling here is actually a really bad idea. If Fwill gets the RNG, I really cannot complain. I squeezed 2 skill wins out of my opponent who had swept me twice in the last 2 weeks, and in the second set, I made 0 skill-based mistakes. I will say that again. 0 skill-based mistakes in the second set by me. And so, welcome to a moment in history. Second place isn't bad. Second place isn't bad, chat. Second place is great. Game Series Championship. I became the second person to win each mode at least once. I gave Fwill his first champs loss and denied him a Dynasty. It was extremely close and also a pretty unpopular victory. A lot of higher tier players expressed their many concerns with the win and what it meant for the future, but I would actually say that I am pretty happy with how I won. Obviously, Fwill wins the Grand Finals more times than I would, but I did what I wanted to do. Fwill, I think, just like myself in the first set, was more focused on me rather than the spot and lost focus, which resulted in a few of his deaths. In fact, in mid-year champs, when I lost to Kai, that was a pretty big reason why. The skill to luck ratio wasn't even 4-4, and when it came to pure RNG, Fwill was at 1.3 and 0. My tournament ceiling sell was my first actual genuine RNG win. Congratulations to Fwill on a great year. Hopefully I can climb to an even higher level and give my next finals opponent a battle with no RNG. It was a deserved win, and I can only hope to be here again next year. And that leaves one more match. Me versus Hacking in Hyper Grand Finals. This was the match I thought there was an actual chance that I could win it, but also without any tricks or plans than just the usual follow your enemy and take things away from them, which was just as hard as before, if not harder this time. Hacking crushed every single losers match he had, sweeping Ku, Owen, and Stygian 2-0. Only Kevin was able to score a point against the man. Out of the 9 matches he had, 6 of them were sweeps. Wait. But he's only swept 5 people so far. Oh, son of a... Yup, that's right, I got swept again. Double grand finals, double sweep. And the worst part of it was that I should have won after one set, 3-2, but I instead lost 3-0. This was mostly because of 2 reasons. First, Hacking is an Australian, which is my kryptonite, partially because they can use jump pots to survive even if they fall. 2 of my wins were just cancelled because Hacking used his lag to survive with jump boost, only something he can do. They basically have 4 safety nets at their disposal. This did a fantastic job of demoralizing me, on top of the fact that nobody has ever won Hyper Champs through winner side, and I work better as an underdog. This match, however, was not really an underdog kind of match. So 2 of my wins didn't count, a pearl I threw didn't teleport me, even though it clearly landed, which resulted in me getting swept in the first set. I did not get a single break in that set, and Hacking could not have had any more momentum in his favor if he tried. But similar to my set with Fwill, after struggling heavily early, Hacking finally showed some flaws that I could actually sink my teeth into and take advantage of. Realistically, I only made 2 mistakes in Grand Finals. My first mistake was very early on when it was rolling grid 0.5 double acid rain. Neither me or Hacking took advantage of the rain, but I jumped way too early, resulting in my first Death Order loss in all of Hyper Champs. So that was fun. My second skill loss was my one and only point dropped in the second set, getting magenta and pink confused on a blizzard map, and not using my pearl correctly. Once again, I watched the Go For It Kuroko video for inspiration, and did not look back. My first victory came when Hacking used his one and only safety net on 1 second rolling pixels, which does, in fact, have a spot. Only problem is that Hacking openly said he doesn't know all of the rolling spots, something that I just so happened to heavily work on in 2025. I would argue that this was one of the biggest reasons Hyper Mode would be harder to win this year, in my opinion, so I made a big point to learn those spots. And hey, I managed to preserve my safety net because of it. Hacking used it when he did not have to. Another probably RNG rolling map comes up late, and Hacking falls. My second victory came on Rolling Cow Factory 0.5. Hacking goes for the regular spot while I try for the easier cow spot. Hacking feathers as he falls, but I don't think he got a jump off, which means if he feathers, he doesn't have enough air time and falls to his death. 1 more point, and I win Hyper and Normal Champ Grand Finals. You can imagine the weight on my shoulders. Another game not too long after draws to a close. I'll let this one play out. He egged. Please! Please, dude, please. 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 Hacking grabs that. No! Please! Ah! Ah! Yes! And with that, Hyper Champs was over, with me winning both modes, becoming the first player to get 3 rings. A dynasty has been born. I was also the first player to win Hyper Champs twice, or win the same mode in back-to-back years. I also joined Dopa as the only person to win both modes at least once. I also had a claim for the best Hyper player of all time. Video on that coming soon. Both my opponents played great and were the correct 2 players to make it there as my opponent. While many may question the difficulty, challenge, or deservingness of this achievement, I stand as champion all the same, and am the rightful champion of each mode. It was an extremely stressful tournament, and the week of the grand finals, I failed to get even a single night of solid rest, making it perhaps the most stressful week of my life. It is quite fitting that one of the longest lasting players in all of Block Party and Pixel Party, and still actively playing today, would earn this achievement. In normal champs, I went 6-1 in matches with a 13-7 record overall, and in Hyper, I went 6-2 with a 14-8 record. Better than last year, but still leaving a lot to work on for the next. Oh yeah, and I did switch the order of normal champs and Hyper to increase the drama. It was better this way, trust me! It was a great year, but also one of strife and long odds, and the tournament was the most stressful one I've had yet, and I still have a long way to go to get better. But now, with the tournaments over, and sleep once again a possibility, I'm free. Man, you know, I miss Technoblade. I obviously never met the guy, but he's like the one person outside of direct family that I would gladly sacrifice my life for if it meant finding a way through his cancer diagnosis. I'm not depressed or anything, I understand how precious life is, but things just aren't the same with him gone. Techno, if you're out there somewhere in the stars, you are amazing, and I wish I could have had a chance to appreciate you now and while I was growing up in school. We're close to the same age. I think I'm slightly older than he is. I don't know why I added this part into the video, but I don't know, man. Life is confusing sometimes. We all miss you, Techno. Your physical form may be gone, but we'll carry you on in our memories. GG, everybody, and so long, nerds.
This guy won champs.
Like
yeah.
a good
This
boy.
guy won champs.
I've
Bro,
done
hyper champs. Anyone can win hyper champs, bro. Till this day.
Then win it.
True.
Bro,
so
you're
true.
not getting the point. What? Is this guy stupid, Sander? Sander, is this guy stupid?
This guy just said anyone can
Yo.
win, but doesn't.
Yes,
know.
anyone can win. It's literally just depending on the day.
So you
I don't
don't
know what
want
to tell you, bro.
$150. You don't want the free $150.
Bro, what I'm saying, bro. You're not taking in what I'm saying, bro. I don't mean anyone like as in with purpose. Anyone as in like whenever the day just fits you and you have luck with power-ups and you get the good power-ups and you're just like in a
Okay,
better
so you're-
situation, you just
So
win.
you're saying it's just luck.
Yes! Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Oh my god.
Okay, how's that any different from
Bro, imagine you get 20 power-ups, yeah, but you get nothing good. But then the other player gets one power-up and gets a pearl and just pearls on you on an impossible map. Is that not luck?
Okay, imagine you go for every hard
I'm
jump
dead,
ever. It
I'm
always
dead,
gives
I'm so
background
dead.
color.
Oh,
and
no,
then
that was
it's
fair.
black, and then
That was
it's
fair.
black.
Oh my god, I
I
actually
don't-
failed.
Wait!
I actually failed.
Wait! What is so
Oh
ass?
my
Wait, hold on. Wait, now I'm
Wait,
actually
what?
interested.
Oh
Oh
Wait,
my
he died?